for, at least in recorded history. The next slide talks about some flooding, and we've obviously seen a lot of flooding around the world. There was a big event in Tennessee, in Nashville, that happened this past spring, and this is the rainfall that occurred that led to that flooding, 10 inches plus over a large area of that state. And I think the next slide shows a picture of some of that flooding. It devastated the Nashville area for a long period of time. What do we have? The next slide. So again, just kind of talking about a lot of the possible extreme events and global extremes that we're looking at currently. We've seen flooding, massive flooding in Pakistan, Australia. Also, we've seen drought and fires in Australia as well. A lot of the all-time record maximum temperatures were observed this summer. Russia had a major heat wave that, especially for the Moscow area, that was very dangerous. So we're seeing these extreme, either rare or hazardous weather events happening all over the world, and that's continuing today. The next slide. This is a sort of a demonstration of maybe a secondary effect, but a very important effect of weather. This shows the price of natural gas, and this was during the period late 2005 into 2006. And if y'all remember, Hurricane Katrina happened in August of 2005. And so, I don't have to tell you how devastating Katrina was to New Orleans and the Mississippi coast, but you can see the rise in the price of natural gas that came as a response to that storm. And then Hurricane Rita came later and actually headed more towards the Houston area, which is where a lot of the supply line goes for natural gas. And there was another spike in the price there as well. And so the early start of the winter was very cold, and the prices kept going up and up. And so there's a definite impact on economics for as a result of these extreme weather events that can be have global impact. So a single storm can affect the whole world. A single drought can affect food prices globally, and these are things that aren't immediately felt, but are very important to realize. Next slide. So I'll end with this. There's definitely some debate as to whether or not the weather is getting more extreme with time, and I guess the answer to that is we're not sure. It depends on how you look at it, and the National Climatic Data Center has this index they call the Climate Extreme Index or Extremes Index that looks at maximum minimum temperatures, precipitation, drought, and tropical activity, and basically looks at what fraction of the area of the United States has been affected by extreme weather for a particular time of the year. And if you look at this index, it's increasing over the last 30 years or so. If you look at this in terms and take out the tropical activity, it has not increased. And so part of this question of whether extreme weather is becoming more frequent, it kind of depends on how you define what extreme weather is. And there's definitely some discussion and debate going on in the meteorological community on that question. So I think I'll stop there and turn it back over to Jeffrey Muhammad.
Can we give Professor another round of applause, please? And we appreciate the learning of the weather patterns and learning the consistency in what certain conditions cause and what they bring. And I'll quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then we're going to segue into disaster Preparedness. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad states in Fall of America, chapter 35, the four great judgments that Almighty God Allah is bringing upon America are rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. We see them now covering all sides of America as the Holy Quran and Bible prophecies, curtailing her on all sides. We've been blessed that we've been warned. We've been warned so that we could be prepared. We've had experts to show, depending on who or what side, that these extreme weather patterns are increasing. Many of us knew that. We know that. Now it's time to be prepared for them. So brothers and sisters, as we segue, there's a video clip that we want to show that Dr. Ivor Carruthers brought back from Hurricane Katrina. If we could cue that now.
We present to you The Breach, for those whose lives were destroyed by Hurricane Katrina, and the breaches which occurred afterwards. America's perennial Achilles heel was exposed because Hurricane Katrina revealed that America, the world's wealthiest nation, with the capacity to effect preemptive strikes, war, relief, and reconstruction efforts throughout the world, was unable to handle the unfolding disaster on its own shores. We survived Katrina, but we could not survive the breach of the levees.
This is a film that Dr. Carruthers brought us. It was one speaker that we wanted to show. Brother, if you could cue the speaker right after that, and then we'll stop after the speaker. Well, until we're able to cue that again, this is a book that Dr. Carruthers and many others put together after Hurricane Katrina. And they were there in the state having personal interviews with the persons that were living there, going door to door, asking the citizens that had to survive of what they went through. And in this book, they counter many different cases and give us a how-to and a what-to. But later on in the video that you just seen, she has an interview with the young man that's walking the street, and it's going to be very touching as he shows you what he's looking at and informing you of what he has to go through as he's living there in that city. First question that we have, starting with disaster preparedness, I'm going to take it to Dr. Carruthers, and we're going to take questions. We're going to be able to show it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry that I'm not as prepared as I should have been. Our organization is one that's constantly on the ground doing work here. So coming strictly from the work that we're doing to come and testify here, and then I'm going back to work. So excuse the way I'm dressed. This has been a great honor, I feel, for being speaking before you. This is the first African American group that I've ever spoken at, and this is 10 months after the hurricane. The tragedy was after the flooding began. I witnessed too many African American men that was young men that was killed, and right where they was literally slaughtered, divided, slain. It reminded me of a song that Billie Holiday used to sing, Strange Fruits. instead of hanging us, they were just shooting us. But right where the bodies fell, that's where they laid. Many of the bodies laid there for 2 weeks. Now, I'm not talking about in areas that was flooded. Algiers didn't flood. And bodies up in Algiers laid there for 2 weeks. Now his body been here for almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks tomorrow. All right, that this body been laying here. And there's no reason for it. Look where we at. I mean, it's not flooded. There's no reason for them to be and left that body right here like this. I mean, that's just totally disrespect. We're gonna talk to everyone from the Army to the New Orleans police to the state.
Dr. Carruthers, in this report, you document what occurred in Hurricane Katrina and what the municipalities there did and didn't do. You also have firsthand accounts of triumphs and tragedies. This was the biggest and most impactful disaster to affect our community that could be witnessed by all since slavery. What are the expectations, or what were the expectations of the local, state, and federal agencies?
Good afternoon, and I want to begin by thanking you for the honor of inviting me to participate in this conversation. In response to that question, it is very clear as we segue from looking at the scientific evidence that underneath scientific fact is the human footprint. And it is often those human decisions that make the difference between life and death, both in terms of our preparedness and in terms of what happens to us when we are not prepared. And so the lessons from Katrina are many, but there are a few I want to just begin to talk about as it relates to the question you asked. And the expectation of the people was that they lived in a safe environment and they would have the protection and the resources and the support of their government to help them in the case of a crisis. What they learned was that that was not the case. Not only was it not the case, but the kinds of simulations that we have just been told about were in fact simulations that had been done too that predicted Katrina. And so the PAM simulation of Hurricane Pam was a model that was used that essentially showed what would happen if Hurricane Katrina hit the shores, and it did. The real issue, however, was that, as one of those who testified before us said, it was not the hurricane that killed us, it was the breach in the levees. And the breach in the levee speaks to the question of public policy and what the government does or does not do in relationship to accountability to us as a community, and even more importantly, what we don't do to take responsibility for our own destination.
Praises be to Allah. We have the microphones that are set in the aisle. If you all would like to ask questions of the panel, you're welcome at any time to come to the microphones. Brother Rudolph, you were able to be on ground zero. You've been in many different unfortunate tragedies. Can you give us, as we word clear, what is the definition of disaster?
A disaster is any situation that overwhelms your resources and that you don't have control over. And that's any condition.
Sister Alva, what's the most difficult thing that a person goes through during a disaster?
The most difficult thing that a person goes through in a disaster is conquering the mind and understanding that it is normal and natural to feel fear, but that we must not be paralyzed by it and then take action.
Sister.
Assalamu alaikum, and to our other panelists. The question that I have is regarding earthquakes. Are there any precautionary methods that can be taken against an earthquake? And where's the best place to be during the earthquake? I'm in Oklahoma, so we get it all.
Yes.
And thank you, Sister Ray. I remember you being in Oklahoma, so thank you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
I like Islamic.
Yes, I would like to answer that question, and it's interesting that we haven't brought up earthquakes, but yes, this region has experienced over 700 earthquakes that, since September. Right now, I mean, at this minute, we could get hit with an earthquake. On April the 28th, the central United States, including your state of Oklahoma, is going to have one big earthquake drill called the Shakeout. So all of you can go online to get that information. And so all of the climatologists here probably know about it because they've been meeting in all the states so on these earthquakes. So I have been present, and so have members of the Millions More movement and the Nation of Islam. We are the lead agency to train people in the inner cities to get ready for the earthquakes. So we are conducting those trainings. And also today, as well as I brought information for you on that. And, excuse me, because I'm stuttering, and so the stammering tongue is trying to speak clear. And, and so the Central United States Earthquake Consortium is leading the educational component. Now, this includes 8 major states, and those states are Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Mississippi, Missouri, and Tennessee. So everything you need to know is on that website. It's called shakeout.org. All you have to put in is Millions More Movement and Nation of Islam. We are the lead agency. That's literally, we are going to be responsible to train the inner city churches, the schools, our prisons, system, and all of that. We already have that set up and in place.
All praise are due to Allah. Go ahead, sir.
Excuse me. Yes. My question is basically in the aftermath, and I'll state it like this. When Dr. Aline went to Haiti, and when we were sending our funds to clean up after Katrina, and we haven't had an accountability for the monies that we have sent out, the aid that we bought. Case in point, how the minister had to give a report of the money that was gained from the Million Man March in '95, and we have no accountability of all those resources that we have given to overcome these disasters and stuff. And I just want to know, is there any kind of way that we can assure that when we give our blessed mercy to our communities, how can we assure that these kind of funds and resources be dealt with in a better way than they have been done?
Sorry, as I can answer that question. Oh my goodness, back in March of 2006, Minister Farrakhan took a trip to Cuba to learn about disaster management. Also, he commissioned a DVD that we use in all of our training. We are the only organization in the world that so actually documented, to be fair, on all sides on what took place. So that's the unmasking of Katrina. So y'all can get this DVD. Now back to the accountability. We must learn disaster management and the disaster preparedness. Currently, the Red Cross is still holding $436 million for Katrina victims. Our organizations can get access, but you need the training. The only organization that will offer you that training is the Millions More Movement and the NOI Disaster Management Training Program for the organizations who want to go and get the money to help. But you must be qualified to handle that type of money. And so mainly is the accountability is just don't write a check. You need to be on the ground because this is a $1 trillion business. Traditionally, we are the victims of disasters versus being the, quote, not responders. Responders, that's only your first 24 to 72 hours. But your managers, you're in it for the long term for years. And this is an area they never taught in the colleges and universities. I learned everything I learned based on Our Savior Has Arrived, The Fall of America, Message to the Black Man, the Bible, the Holy Quran, and also field experience, 20 years of that. And so first, start preparing your families and yourselves. How many of you have taken the training that within the past 20 years that I have offered? How many have been certified? Just see a show of hand in the audience. Okay, and also, we start training our children at age 0. All the children are invited in our classes. So first, it must start with education. And so back to the funds. That's how we can track the funds, but you must be qualified to handle trillions and billions of dollars. But yet, the money is still there for the victims of Katrina.
All praise are due to Allah. Dr. Ivo?
And I would only add that I think we also have to step this up to the conversation around self-empowerment. And so we also need to create collaboratively our own fund that we hold each other accountable for.
That's
so
right.
that the money flows through our community and it begins to build capacity. And one of the lessons learned retrospectively about Katrina was that Katrina was just a practice for Haiti. And when you look at the Haitian earthquake in relationship to public policy, it was really the public policy that caused the degree of consequence for Haiti because of decisions of the World Bank and so forth. And we can go on and on about the neglect of Haiti and the disempowerment of Haiti that was intentional since the liberation of Haiti in the 1800s. But the point I'm really trying to make is that right now what Haitians are struggling with are the external flow of dollars coming in controlled by third parties at the expense of the country being able to have its own capacity to restore its nationhood and its independence. And so we have to understand the relationship when the TV comes on and they say, send all the money to the Red Cross. We have to be at the table to, first of all, hold the Red Cross accountable, but most importantly, begin to build our own capacity so that the funds come through us around our agenda.
Now, praise be to Allah. A document was released in the state of New York late last year. They called it the Doomsday Report. How many of you all have heard of the Doomsday Report? Brother Rudolph, what is the Doomsday Report? He was able to be there as they were putting this document together. What is the Doomsday Report?
25 words or less. The Doomsday Report is a report that outlines and details the power of the local and state health officers and their ability to force vaccinations, to quarantine willingly or unwillingly, and to mandatorily house or warehouse thousands of people under the guise of public health. So anything that is deemed to be a risk of public health, then they have the authority to do whatever it is that they want to do for however long they want to do it with whomever they want to do it to.
Assalamualaikum. I have a question about the recent deaths of dolphins that have been coming to shore and also the massive deaths of birds. I'd like to know if there's been some scientific conclusion as to why that's occurring. And also, there's been a magnetic shift in the poles. Would that have an effect on the weather?
anything dealing with the death of anything in the sea has to come from the environment it lives in. And because we have polluted our planet and dumped everything into our ocean, what do we expect to happen to that which lives in the ocean? And what do we expect to happen